When you think of Keith Urban, you probably picture a country music legend. He's the charismatic showman with a guitar, a string of #1 hits, and a loving superstar wife, Nicole Kidman, by his side. It's a life that looks picture perfect, full of sold-out stadiums and Grammy Awards. He gave us hits like Somebody Like You and Blue Ain't Your Color, songs that became the soundtrack to so many lives. But behind that famous smile is a story of profound pain that's often hidden from view. Now, at 57, looking back, Keith Urban's life has been a series of devastating struggles. From a traumatic childhood and losing his home to a crippling addiction that nearly cost him everything. This is the heartbreaking true story of the private tragedy behind his incredible career. Keith Lionel Urban was born on October 26, 1967, in New Zealand, and moved with his family to Australia when he was 2. From the outside, it was a home filled with music. His dad, Bob, was a massive fan of American country music and passed that love down to his son. He owned a convenience store and was the one who put a ukulele in Keith's hands at age 4. And a guitar just 2 years later. This love for music was the greatest gift of his childhood, the very thing that would one day make him a global star. But beneath the music, the home was broken by a darkness that would haunt Keith for decades. His father was an alcoholic. Growing up in that kind of household meant Keith never had the emotional safety a kid needs. He has spoken candidly about this painful past, describing his father as a physical disciplinarian. In a gut-wrenching interview with Rolling Stone, he admitted that his father used to beat him. For years, he tried to justify the violence, telling himself, "He never did anything I didn't deserve." It was only as an adult that he came to the painful realization that no child deserves that. The emotional toll was immense. Keith recalled how his father almost never showed him affection or praised his musical talent. After playing a gig he thought was fantastic, the only feedback he'd get from Bob was criticism, like being told to speak more slowly on stage. There was no "I love you," no nod to his obvious gift. This carved deep wounds of insecurity that he would carry into adulthood. To make things even more complicated, as his father got older, he seemed to forget the physical abuse, leaving Keith to carry those memories all by himself, as if the turmoil at home wasn't enough. Another tragedy struck when Keith was 10. After the family moved to a farm, the house burned to the ground. For the next year and a half, the family, Keith, his older brother Shane, and their parents had to live in a tin tractor shed. He and his brother shared a bed on one side of a large workbench, with his parents on the other. He described it as looking like a squatter's residence. This mix of a volatile home, physical abuse, and the trauma of losing everything created a perfect storm of instability. It fueled a deep insecurity that would drive both his incredible ambition and the destructive behaviors that would later threaten to tear it all down. The boy learning to pour his heart into a guitar was also learning to bottle up a world of pain. From a young age, Keith Urban felt he knew his path. He once famously said, "Nashville's not my dream, it's my destiny." This wasn't just talk, it was a conviction that fueled a relentless drive. He started entering talent shows at 8, and by his teens, he was already a seasoned performer. His sound was a unique blend of his dad's country records and the rock he loved. Like Dire Straits and Fleetwood Mac, after some success in Australia, he knew it was time to take on the heart of country music, Nashville. But Nashville didn't exactly roll out the red carpet. When he arrived in the early 1990s, he was hit with a wall of rejection. He and his manager spent days shopping his demo tape around, only to be turned down by every single label. He was an outsider, an Australian trying to break into a very American world. He later recalled the crushing feeling that nothing he'd done back home mattered. "I was absolutely sure I was in the right place," he said, "and I couldn't understand why it wasn't working. It was very frustrating." That frustration and insecurity became a dangerous cocktail. To cope with the constant rejection, he turned to drugs and alcohol. "When I was on stage, I felt good. But if I was not on stage, I was very, very insecure," he admitted to Rolling Stone. Cocaine became his escape, a way to numb the pain of feeling like his best just wasn't good enough. The social partying he'd done with his band, The Ranch, spiraled out of control. When he was off the road, he'd spend days getting high, feeling very alone, very lost, and vulnerable. The Ranch had a bit of acclaim with an album in 1997, but soon disbanded as Keith went solo. His talent was undeniable, and he got gigs playing for giants like Garth Brooks and the Chicks. but his addiction was getting worse. In 1998, it got so bad that he checked into his first rehab, Cumberland Heights in Nashville, for cocaine addiction. Even as his solo career finally took off with his 1999 American debut album, which gave him his first #1 hit, but for the grace of God, the shadows of addiction were always there. With every success, the pressure grew. He was living a double life, the rising star on stage, and the insecure man battling his demons in private. He later admitted he was in denial about his alcoholism for a long time because he didn't drink the way his father did. That comparison allowed him to rationalize his own behavior, delaying the inevitable confrontation with his disease. The price of fame was getting dangerously high, and the real fight for his life was just getting started. By the mid-2000s, Keith Urban was a certified country superstar, and in January 2005, at a gala in Los Angeles, he met the person who would change his life forever, actress Nicole Kidman. Kidman, who had divorced Tom Cruise a few years earlier, later said they were two very lonely people who met when they were finally ready to open up to love. For Keith, it was instant. He described seeing her as if she glided across the room, floated. Despite that spark, it took Keith for months to work up the courage to call her. He carried her number around in his pocket, fighting the same old insecurities. When he finally called, their romance took off. On her 38th birthday, he showed up on her New York doorstep at 5 a.m. with gardenias, and she knew he was the one. They were engaged by May 2006 and married just a month later in a beautiful ceremony in Sydney. It seemed like a fairy tale, but the reality was much more complicated. Keith has admitted he wasn't really working on his sobriety at the time. He wasn't in a program, had no sponsor, and his relationship with Nicole had become his new sobriety crutch. He was trying to build a new life with the woman he loved, but he was still standing on the shaky ground of untreated addiction. The breaking point came just 4 months into their marriage. While Nicole was away filming, Keith relapsed. The darkness he'd been running from caught up with him, threatening to destroy everything. He later described it as the moment he caused the implosion of my fresh marriage. But Nicole Kidman didn't run. She cancelled her work, flew back immediately, and with a few close friends, staged an intervention. Keith has talked about this moment with raw honesty, calling it a point where Nicole really should have just walked, but her love was powerful. He said he saw the love in that room and knew he had no fight left. I was very, very blessed to have Nissi call an intervention on me, he recalled, and off I went. In October 2006, he checked into the Betty Ford Center. For 3 months, it was his 3rd time in rehab, a sign of just how difficult the path to recovery can be. He described this period as the moment he was spiritually awoken by Nicole. Her decision to reach into the fire and pull me out was the ultimate act of love. It was a test that could have shattered their new marriage, but instead, it forged an unbreakable bond. Nicole, for her part, has talked about how hard it is to support a partner in recovery. She had to learn that she couldn't save him, but she could be there to help him save himself. Keith did the work. He emerged from rehab, a changed man, finally ready to face his demons. He had to learn a completely new way of living without the substances he'd relied on for so long. He later wrote the song Thank You as a tribute to Nicole, with lyrics that lay his gratitude bare. I thank you for my life, and I thank God for grace and mercy, and that you became my wife. This wasn't just about getting sober. It was about choosing life, choosing love, and finally breaking the chains of his past. Getting sober for good opened up a whole new life for Keith Urban, one defined by a deep and healing love. His marriage to Nicole Kidman became his anchor. He often says it was with her that his life truly began, that he was born into her. They welcomed their first daughter, Sunday Rose, in 2008, and their second, Faith Margaret, in 2010. Becoming a father was a role Keith never knew if he'd get to play, and he embraced it with a profound sense of gratitude. This newfound stability didn't erase his scars, but it gave him the strength to face new heartbreaks. In December 2015, Keith faced one of the most painful moments of his life, the death of his father. Bob Urban passed away after a long battle with cancer. The timing was bittersweet. Keith had just opened an exhibit at the Country Music Hall of Fame, a career high that felt strange as the man who first sparked his love for country music was in his final days. My dad is the catalyst for all of this, Keith said at the time. My dad's love of country music and America set me on my life's journey. While his relationship with his father was complicated, his death was a huge loss. Keith had finally chosen sobriety, a choice he wished his father had been able to make. Now he had to say goodbye to the man whose legacy was a mix of pain and passion. In a statement, Keith said his dad was finally at peace. This time, he wasn't facing it alone. He had Nicole, who had lost her own father the year before and understood his grief. The support system he'd built was his bedrock. He and Nicole have been open about the secret to their long marriage, emphasizing a family-first approach and a simple life in Nashville. But the life of a public figure is never free from turmoil. For years, Keith has been the target of cruel death hoaxes that spread like wildfire on social media. And that public stress is compounded by real-life sorrow. In late 2024, the family suffered another tragic loss when Nicole's beloved mother, Janelle, passed away, a private grief they navigated together. Through it all, the echoes of a tough childhood, the battle with addiction, the loss of a parent, and the bizarre pressures of fame. The constant has been the healing power of his family. The love he shares with Nicole and their daughters didn't just save his life, it has allowed him to channel his pain into his art, creating music that connects with millions because it comes from a place of hard-won truth. Before we continue, if you've been moved by Keith Urban's story of resilience, take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about the real lives behind the spotlight. At 57, Keith Urban's story isn't just a tale of tragedy, it's a powerful testament to the human spirit's ability to heal. His life has been one of incredible highs and devastating lows. From a childhood scarred by trauma, he rose to the top of the music world, only to nearly lose it all to the same disease of addiction that had shadowed his family for generations. His journey is a powerful story of breaking a painful cycle. He faced the demons his father couldn't, choosing a path of sobriety that he openly wishes his dad could have found. And he didn't do it alone. The unwavering love and support of his wife, Nicole Kidman, was the intervention that saved not just his career, but his life. Their partnership is a powerful example of what love can do, a bond forged not in spite of the struggles, but because of them. Today, Keith Urban is more than a country music icon. He's a devoted husband and a loving father to 2 daughters, a role he cherishes because he knows how close he came to losing it all. He has quietly become a source of strength for others in the industry, battling addiction, paying forward the grace he was given. He has faced the grief of losing his father and continues to navigate the often cruel reality of public life. Yet, he stands on stage not as a man defined by his tragedies, but as one shaped by them. He once said, "All those detours, especially the really dark ones, got me to where I am now. I would not want to change one leaf on any tree in the whole journey." In those words lies the truth of his story, a story of a survivor who turned his deepest pain into his greatest strength.